Alright, before we hop into the video today, just a quick thank you to our sponsor, Sports TNB. Hey, if you play 2K, you know the grind is real. The badge grind can get tough, so if you're looking to buy a stacked NBA 2K account with max badges and everything like that, visit sportstnb.com. Make sure to let him know HaydenYT sent you, and he'll get you everything you need. He's legit. First link in the description down below. Go check it out. Alright, what's going on YouTube? Hayden here, and today we're back with a brand new video. Today we have our first edition of our top 15 rankings. I know it's pretty late in the season to start this series, but you know, I guess it's better late than never. Alright, so just a quick rundown of what I'm going to be doing in this video. So we're going to be going for each team. We're going to go from 15 down to 1. I'm going to pop up one team at a time. So for instance, number 15, I'm going to pop it up, talk a little bit about it, and you know, then move on down to 14 all the way down to 1. Alright, before we hop into the video, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, go ahead and make sure you hit that red subscribe button. Click that bell to know every time I post a video. Hey, make sure to drop a like because it really helps out the channel. YouTube's algorithm is weird sometimes, so hitting the like button really helps it out and gets me out to a new audience. So if you do enjoy the video, make sure to comment down below. Put your top 10, put your top 15 down in the rankings. Interested to see what you guys' top 15 is. So yeah, let's get right into the video. Alright, let's hop right in and reveal number 15. At number 15 in my first ever rankings, we have Auburn University. They got a couple quality wins against Oregon, Texas A&M. Tough strength of schedule with no real bad loss on their resume. They're just a tricky team because of their 3 losses, but the only thing close to a bad loss, I guess, would be the Florida game because of just the way they lost. I mean, that game was a turnover machines. Both teams were turning the ball over like crazy. It was just a sloppy game, not a fun game to watch. Hey, but they'll be going into the last game of the season, maybe playing spoiler here. They got to go up against Auburn in the Iron Bowl. That game always gets a little bit weird sometimes, especially playing in Jordan Hare. So you never know, Auburn could pull this upset, especially with, you know, the Tua injury and everything, and end their season on a bang. Next up, number 14 in my rankings will be Notre Dame. They can be a tough team to judge in my opinion because of they don't play in a conference, obviously. That's one of the reasons. And they've just been slightly up and down this season, a little bit inconsistent, playing good here, playing bad here. Just really that close loss to Georgia early, then that blowout to Michigan. Just that blowout to Michigan was a shocker, kind of, I guess. I mean, some people expect it because Notre Dame is usually like an overrated team a little bit sometimes coming into the season. So people kind of expected a letdown like that at some point this year, but then they went in and destroyed an option team in Navy, and that was pretty impressive in my eyes. Anytime you can shut down an option team that's that good, the way they're playing with their quarterback, he's a stud. So yeah, and also looking at their schedule, their close games against USC and Virginia Tech don't really look all that bad now. I mean, the USC loss still a little bit 8-4 USC, but Virginia Tech's been playing really good football as of late. They've been playing some of the best football in the country. Moving on, number 13, Michigan. So they have their quality wins against Iowa and Notre Dame. Obviously, we just spoke on their blowout to Notre Dame. Michigan came out of the gates with a slow start on the offensive side. But really, since that loss to Penn State, they haven't looked back, and they've been playing some really good football. Something's clicked in that offense. Shea Patterson's playing well. They're figuring it out at a pretty good time in the season. Still big test of the year going up against Ohio State. Big noon Saturday coming up on November 30th. That should be a fun one. Another rivalry game on rivalry week that can get crazy. You never know with these rivalries, man. So yeah, Michigan, number 13. Right ahead of them will be Wisconsin, another Big Ten team. A lot of good Big Ten teams this year. The Big Ten's definitely up there with the SEC this season, in my opinion. They're a strong conference. Alright, number 12, Wisconsin. They had a hot start to the year, but ever since that brutal loss to Illinois, I guess it's not so brutal now. I mean, Lovie Smith in Illinois, he's got a good program going. He's getting something started there, and it's still not a great loss on their resume. But ever since that game, they've been stumbling a little bit. They had one of their quality wins is Iowa. That was a close, gritty win. Yeah, 24-22, just about as close as you can get. But as you can tell from these rankings so far, head-to-head is definitely a big key for my rankings. And that's why Wisconsin is still ahead of Michigan, even though Michigan, in my eyes, is the better team right now. Today, if you put those two teams up against each other, I think Michigan would come out to win this time around. So yeah, but head-to-head still plays a big part to me, and that's why Wisconsin and a couple of these other teams in the rankings are ahead of each other. Yeah, Wisconsin has a chance to claim the Big Ten West this weekend against Minnesota. So let's see what they can do. I mean, like I said, they've been stumbling a little bit. Pretty big win against Purdue, not in the sense that Purdue's a good football team, just that they seem to get back on their feet a little bit with a blowout W against Purdue. So yeah, let's see what they can do against Minnesota with the conference championship hopes on the line. All right, number 11, Florida. Their only real good win to me came against Auburn, but they don't really have a bad loss on their resume either. The two losses coming to LSU and Georgia, who were in the college football playoff rankings number 2 and number 4. So yeah, those are definitely not bad losses. Even that Georgia game, they had the opportunities and they couldn't capitalize. I know I literally just said head-to-head means a lot here, and I have Auburn at 15, but that's a little bit of a different story to some of these other ones, because Auburn's still a 3-loss team. Even though their losses are not bad, they're still a 3-loss team. Florida's still a 2-loss team, and that still plays a part in it as well. So yeah. And also Florida, to me, passes the eye test more than Auburn does. But I really kind of had to stick Florida at 11. I couldn't see them going any higher. I can't see them being a top 10 team in my eyes right now. All right, getting into our top 10 here. My 10th ranked team is Baylor. Baylor's been a surprise team this year. I mean, they kind of came out of nowhere in the weaker Big 12 conference, I guess you could say. And they really only have, their resume has only really one good win. And also they played some really close games in that controversial Texas Tech double overtime win they got. They probably should have 2 losses on their schedule, but they got away with that one in Texas Tech. It's just hard to penalize them though, being 10-1, with their only loss coming against a top 10 Oklahoma team, who they were actually beating pretty handily. 28-3, they blew that lead. They pulled the Falcons. They were the joke of the football world for a little bit with 28-3. You know, the Falcons somehow found a way to get pulled back into that joke again. Moving on. Number 9, Penn State. To me, they're the best 2-loss team in the country. They just are to me. And also, they played one of the toughest schedules to date in a strong Big Ten conference. According to one site I was looking at, I think they actually have the toughest schedule in the country. And I guess to come out of the toughest schedule with 2 losses against 2 teams. I mean, Minnesota, we didn't see them really losing to Minnesota. That one put Minnesota on the map pretty much. And speaking of the Ohio State game, they competed in that game, came back, forced it to being a close game. It was looking like it was going to be a blowout. But as the Penn State Ohio State games are, they're usually a blowout, and then some team comes back and makes a miraculous comeback. But Penn State pulled a little bit of a comeback, but they couldn't get it done. Like I said, they have some nice quality wins against Iowa and Michigan. So yeah, Penn State number 9. And right ahead of them, another Big Ten foe, Minnesota. Minnesota had a really rough start to the year. We all remember that South Dakota State game that came down to the wire. They went to double OT with Fresno State, beat Georgia Southern by a field goal, beat Purdue by a touchdown. And then after that, they started to click. They turned it on. And then they got that huge resume builder win against Penn State. People did not think they were going to come in and get that win. They were undefeated going in. And man, did they put themselves on the map, like I said earlier, talking about Penn State. PJ Fleck getting it going in Minnesota with that win. Close loss to Iowa, coming off that emotional Penn State win. That's always a tough one. You got to go into the stadium where teams come to die. That Iowa Stadium gets weird. I don't know. They just always find a way to pull some big win out in that stadium of theirs in Iowa. So yeah, still their playoff hopes are alive and well though, if they can beat Wisconsin this weekend. All right, Oklahoma at number 7. So Oklahoma number 7. They're really tough to judge. Like I was talking a little bit about with Baylor. They're just in that weak Big 12 conference. The Big 12 is just not very good this year. We thought Texas was going to be a good team. They're sitting at 5 losses. I don't know. They just haven't been a solid conference this season. I mean, they got that big win against Baylor, that big comeback like I was talking about, 28-3 they were down. Found a way to pull it back. And you really could argue Minnesota being at number 7 in my opinion. But Oklahoma is more of a placeholder for me, honestly. They're just here because of the Oregon loss. Hard to move them down, hard to move them up. they're kind of just idle at number 7. You know, really for them, let's just see what happens in Bedlam. That's another crazy rivalry game. Even though Oklahoma State lost 2 of their big pieces, I'm pretty sure they lost their quarterback and their star wide receiver, I believe. If I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure that's the case with Oklahoma State. Bad time to do that and going up against your biggest rival in Oklahoma. And then they had the Big 12 title rematch against Baylor. So Oklahoma still has a little bit of hope alive in their season. Number 6, the lone Pac-12 team in my top 15. Pac-12 is kind of like the Big 12, a pretty weak conference. Utah really doesn't have any necessarily quality wins. I mean, at the time when they played Arizona State, they were a ranked team, but Arizona State's now sitting at 6-5, I believe. But the thing about Utah compared to Oregon is Utah has actually dominated their schedule. They haven't really, other than that USC slip up. I mean, even the USC slip up, I mean, they had Zach Moss was out for part of that game. That was a big key to why they lost that game. Utah's just, like I was saying, they dominated. They're a heavy pass, like I noted on the screen. They're a heavy pass on the eye test. Just a fun team to watch, as they've been dominating the Pac-12 all season long. Oregon losing their game against Arizona State could actually hurt Utah, though. I think Utah really needed Oregon to come in as a one-loss team, 2 one-loss teams battling it out for the Pac-12, but that's not the case now after Oregon slides to 9-2 in the season. But they still have a shot at the playoffs with the Pac-12 championship. I think if they win the Pac-12 championship, barring some other weird circumstances, I think they do find a way to get into the playoffs. Yeah, that's Utah at number 6. Let's move on to number 5, Alabama. Alabama is they're in the Oklahoma boat for me. Really just hard to move them. They're just a placeholder. They won't play in the SEC championship this year. It'll be Georgia LSU matching up in that game. But they will most likely drop if a conference championship. They will most likely drop if conference champ. God, can I speak English, please? They will most likely drop if the conference championship week goes as planned. But we know the case. Rivalry week and conference championship week gets a little bit crazy, so it probably won't go as planned. Unfortunate injury to Tua. All prayers to him, though. Hopefully he can have a speedy recovery. That hip injury. That's what ended Bo Jackson's career. So yeah, hopefully with the way technology is nowadays and medicine and everything like that, he'll be able to find a way to get back on the football field at some point. So yeah, hoping the best for Tua. With that said, that opens the doors for Auburn this weekend in the Iron Bowl. Like I was saying, Jordan Hare gets a little bit weird in these games. So you never know what could really happen. I think Auburn has a good chance now with Tua being out. Don't really sleep on Alabama's offense, though, with Mac Jones. They're still a solid team. He's got a lot of good pieces around him, a wide receiver, and at running backs. All right, my team, number 4, Georgia. They played that brutal November schedule, toughed it out, and they survived that November pretty well. Florida, Missouri, Auburn, A&M, all solid teams. There's some top 25 defenses in there, top 10 defenses in that November slot. They have one of the worst losses on paper this season to South Carolina, but they're still a top 4 team with not much of a dynamic offense. Like I said, that brutal loss to South Carolina, but they have a nice resume to fall back on. Some teams don't. Some teams don't have a really nice resume like Georgia does. I believe LSU and Georgia are the only teams in the country with 3 top 15 wins. I mean, Georgia's got some nice wins against Auburn, Florida, Notre Dame. A&M could be a quality win because of their tough schedule they've had to play. Yeah, nice resume and a really elite defense, top 3 defense in the country. And then they play LSU in the SEC championship to have a shot at making the playoffs if, barring some unforeseen circumstances, goes on in Atlanta. Playing Georgia Tech, but I don't see that happening. Georgia Tech's having one of the worst Georgia Tech teams in the past 10 years. To number 3, Clemson. They've played one of the weakest schedules, but they don't have a blemish on that schedule, as they've blown out every team on their schedule besides North Carolina. That one got a little bit scary for Clemson. People still look at that one and judge them pretty tough. I mean, I guess when you blow out every other team, you got to look at the one close 1-point win and look at that one and judge that one the most. Don't get me wrong, Clemson has had their blemishes, I guess you could say, at the start of the year. Trevor Lawrence did not look like this freshman phenom we saw in his freshman year. He's looking like he's having a little bit of a sophomore slump at the start of the year. I said slump really weird right there, but he's like having a little bit of a sophomore slump starting the year. But ever since then, they've dominated. They're just a complete team on the offensive and defensive side, and you can't really penalize their schedule, I guess. I mean, maybe if they had some losses on it, you could, obviously, but with the way they've been dominating, you can't really penalize it, and they can't control how good their conference is going to be. They got their rivalry game against South Carolina. They should take that one with ease. Number 2. This is where things get a little bit controversial for some people, but LSU at number 2 for me. And like I said, probably a really controversial placement for some people. I've seen Ohio State at number 1 for some people, LSU at number 1 for some people, but in my book, LSU is the number 2 team in the country. I mean, they have played one of the toughest schedules, and they've dominated it. I mean, they've beat some really solid teams. They beat Florida this season. They beat Auburn. They beat Alabama. Their offense is just dynamic. They got, obviously, Joe Burrow, the front runner for the Heisman in my eyes. They just made it look pretty easy on the offensive side, but the one thing that I just can't put them at number 1 because of this. Their defense, they have all these accolades to be the number 1 team in the country, but their defense has just been inconsistent this year and just not that LSU defense we're used to seeing. Luckily, they have one of the best offenses in the country, if not the best offense in the country besides Ohio State. Defense is really just the reason why I can't put the LSU at number 1. Moving on, our number 1 team in my rankings is Ohio State. To me, they have looked like the most complete team in the country this year. They have the best rated offense and arguably the best defense in the country as well. And they've just been dominating their opposition this year. They beat up on Wisconsin, beat them by 31 points. They put up 70 twice this year. And then they got that big win against Penn State. That's really where their season started, was last week against Penn State. Now they go on to play Michigan next weekend, or this weekend. Rivalry game, like I keep mentioning, these rivalry games can get crazy, but like I said, best offense, best defense, it's hard to beat something like that. But then they will play the winner of the Wisconsin-Minnesota game in the Big Ten Championship. But yeah, with that said, it's looking good for Ohio State, and they're sitting at number 1 in my rankings. So yeah, to me, they're the best team in the country. All right, moving on to our best of the rest. I didn't want to do a top 25. These guys aren't in order for me. They're just scattered around the screen, as you can see. But just some notes about this. Memphis and Cincinnati are 2 of my best of the rest teams. They'll be playing in a big one this weekend for the G5 squad. It's a big game considering for that G5 slot in the New Year's Six Bowl. Memphis and Cincinnati, like I said, they'll play this weekend, and they'll most likely rematch in the conference championship. But the one thing here is, though, that could be good for one of these other best of the rest teams. Memphis and Cincinnati playing each other twice kind of opens the door if they're going to be beating up on each other. Say they split it or something like that. That opens the door for maybe Boise State to slide into that G5 New Year's Six slot. So that could get it pretty interesting. And Virginia Tech, they're on this best of the rest. Probably one of the better best of the rest teams in my eyes, as they're just playing great as of late. They're a really good football team right now. Something's really clicked on the Virginia Tech squad. I mean, that rough start hurt them. 3 losses. They're sitting at 8-3, 9-3, something like 8-3. That'd be 8-3. But yeah, they have a chance to play Clemson in the ACC championship. With the way they're playing, they might be able to put up a little bit of a fight. I don't see them beating Clemson, but it could probably be a pretty interesting matchup, at least for a little bit in that game. Then Oregon, pretty harsh drop for them. In the college football playoff, they were sitting at 6, and then in my rankings, they're probably right outside the top 15 at like 16. If I were to put them put a number beside their name. But yeah, just for them, the lack of solid resume hurts them in my eyes. That loss kind of just put them out of the playoff picture for me. That's the best of the rest, and that's some notes about that one. Moving on, recap of the top 15. But as of right now, my playoffs would be Georgia versus Ohio State, Clemson, LSU. That's a really tough spot for Clemson as of right now. I mean, playing Clemson at a 3 seed is never something you really want to see. Clemson's always a real tough out in the playoffs, as they've been on top a couple times. And the real interesting thing this year in the playoffs is that the top seeds get to actually choose where they want to play their game. So that could really do some good home field advantage for some of these teams, depending on where they get seeded at. So that's something also to look at. And then obviously these standings most likely won't be standing nearly the same after rivalry weekend and conference championship weekend, as they're 2 wild weeks. Yeah, just some crazy football left. You never really know what's going to happen in college football. Anything can happen. Anybody can be beaten on any given day. So I can't wait for these last 2 weeks of football before we get into the bowl season. Can't believe the season's already at this point where it's almost over, man. Football just comes and goes. It really sucks, but you know, it is what it is. And let's take a look at the comparison to the college football rankings. Almost identical standings to them. My standings are like almost identical, besides a couple minor spot changes. Our top 8 is completely identical. No changes between the top 8 between me and the committee. We flip-flop between Penn State and Baylor at 9 and 10. They put Baylor at 9. I had Baylor at 10. Then we had the same 11 through 13 teams. No Notre Dame in the top 15 for the committee, but I had Notre Dame slotted at number 14. They had Oregon in there. And then we both have Auburn slotted in at 15 to round out the top 15. That's really everything I have for this video. That was a lot of talking. Oh my gosh. Oh man, a lot of talking. There was a lot to talk about right there. A lot of good information. This is a lot of fun to make, honestly. I've always enjoyed doing these my own rankings and seeing how they compare up against the committee. I've always done it in the past, just never made a video out of it, and you know, honestly, this is pretty fun. It sucks that I started so late. We have to wait a long time to be doing this again. Only have a couple more chances to this, but you know, like I said, it was a lot of fun to make. But anyways, that's all we have for today's video. That's my top 15 rankings. Let me know if you agree or disagree down below in the comments section. I would like to hear that. I'd like to see you guys' top 15 as well. Put that in the comment section too. If you've watched this far, I know this is probably gonna be a pretty long video, so if you made it here, you're a true warrior. I appreciate it. And yeah, make sure to drop a like if you enjoyed this video. Hit that red subscribe button. Click that bell next to the subscribe button to know when I post content. That's all we have. That was a lot of talking right there. But anyways, other than that, let's get this over with. It's been Hayden. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace out, everybody.